In secret. In the quiet corners of a bedroom at 3 a.m., or in the heavy space between two heartbeats. They happen in places no one sees. And sometimes, the greatest obstacle to your success, the thing standing between you and the life you were promised, is not your effort. It is not your talent. It is something hidden, deep in the soil of your history. Think about this for a second. What if you did everything right? What if you followed every rule, checked every box, and honored every commitment, but your life still refused to move forward? What if the delay, the crushing weight of standing still, wasn't your fault at all? Would you keep believing? Would you stay the course when the compass seems broken? Or would you give up? Because this is about a man who did everything right. A man who built his house on a foundation of discipline, and still watched the walls crumble into dust. He lost everything. His career, his reputation, his peace, and the woman he thought would be by his side forever. But before we go any further into the darkness of his storm, if stories of the human spirit speak to you, if you believe that no one is ever truly beyond a second chance, take a moment to subscribe. Because what you're about to hear might change how you see your own struggle. It might explain the very delay you are living through right now. This is the story of James. A man of discipline. A man of immense promise. A man who never saw the storm coming, because he was too busy looking at the sun. James was never like the others. Even as a young boy, there was a gravity to him. While other children played in the streets, shouting and chasing the temporary thrills of youth, James was in the library. He studied. He planned. He built. While his peers were discovering the distractions of their teenage years, James was refining his focus. He saw life as a series of equations. If you put in the work, you get the result. It was simple. It was logical. Discipline wasn't just a habit he picked up from a book. It was the very fabric of his identity. He believed that if he outworked everyone, he would outlive the reach of failure. But here is the question that haunts the successful. Does doing everything right actually guarantee the right outcome? Have you ever wondered why the most hardworking people are often the most overlooked? Because if the world were fair, James' story would have been simple. It would have been a straight line to the top. Successful. Predictable. Perfect. A textbook example of the American dream. But life rarely follows the script we write for ourselves. 1 year turned into 5. 5 years turned into 10. Effort compounded like interest in a bank account. Sacrifice multiplied. James missed the parties. He missed the vacations. He lived on caffeine and ambition. And then, for a brief moment, the reward finally came. A first-class degree. Top of his class. Every door seemed to swing wide open. The recognition was sweet. The celebration was loud. His family smiled, his father stood tall with pride, and his friends admired him from a distance. The world expected greatness. James expected greatness. He felt like a runner who had finally crossed the finish line. But let me ask you something. Have you ever reached a milestone, only to realize it wasn't the finish line at all? Have you ever climbed a mountain, only to see a much larger, much darker peak standing right behind it? Because for James, that degree, that moment of glory, was just the beginning of a long, cold walk through the desert. 100 applications. 200. 300. Interviews that felt like formalities. Rejections that felt like slaps in the face. Again. And again. And again. James did not understand. He had the credentials. He had the character. He had the drive. Yet, every time he reached for the handle, the door was locked from the inside. Silence. And silence, can be much louder than failure. When you fail, you know why. You hit a wall. You made a mistake. You can fix it. But silence. Silence confuses. It makes you look in the mirror and ask, what is wrong with me? Now ask yourself, what happens to the human soul when immense effort meets zero reward? Doubt begins to grow. It is a slow, quiet, dangerous doubt. It starts as a whisper in the back of your mind, and grows until it's the only voice you can hear. James started to wonder if he was cursed. He started to wonder if his hard work was a joke the universe was playing on him. Quick question. Do you think this is just bad luck? A series of unfortunate coincidences? Or is there something deeper? Something moving beneath the surface that James couldn't see? If you want to uncover the truth about why some people stay stuck while others soar, make sure you're subscribed. Because the truth behind James' delay is about to reveal something that might be happening in your own life. And then, in the middle of the drought, came Sarah. She wasn't loud. She wasn't dramatic. She was steady. Like an anchor in a restless sea. She didn't care about the first-class degree or the empty job offers. She saw something in James that he had forgotten was there. She saw his heart. She saw his resilience. She saw him, even when he couldn't see himself. And slowly, in the wreckage of his ambition, love began to grow. For the first time in years, James breathed. He wasn't just a machine of discipline. He was a man. But consider this. Can love truly survive? When the rest of your life is falling apart? Can you hold on to someone else, when you can barely hold on to yourself? Because this love, this beautiful, fragile thing, was about to be tested by a fire James never saw coming. While James was fighting for his future, behind the scenes, something dark was unfolding. His father. The man who taught him about pride. The man who stood at the head of the table. A man trusted by the community, and respected by his peers. He was living a double life. It wasn't just a mistake. It was a system. Stealing from those who had nothing. Selling what didn't belong to him. Exploiting the pain of others to fund a lifestyle of hidden luxury. And here is the hardest truth of all. Sin does not stay hidden forever. It is like a seed planted in the dark. It grows. It spreads its roots. And eventually, it breaks through the surface. James didn't know it, but his father's shadow had been following him into every interview. The silence James was hearing? It was the sound of doors closing because of his last name. The world knew what his father was, long before James did. The weight of the father was crushing the son. Who pays the price for the mistakes of the past? Is it the one who committed the act, or the ones who carry the name? The rumors began as whispers. Faded conversations that stopped when James entered a room. And then, Sarah heard them. Doubt entered her heart. Not because she didn't love him, but because she didn't know what was real anymore. If James' foundation was built on his father, was James built on a lie? Fear followed. And slowly, love turned into distance. The phone calls got shorter. The smiles got tighter. What hurts more? The truth, or what people believe about you? James was about to feel both. He was about to be hit by the full force of a storm he didn't create. If you've ever been misunderstood, if you've ever been judged for something you didn't do, then you understand the suffocating weight of this moment. If this story feels real to you, if you can feel the air leaving James' lungs, then subscribe. Because you need to hear how this ends. You need to know that you are not alone in the middle of your own collapse. One night, the sky fell. The father was exposed. Publicly. Violently. Shame poured into the house like a flood. Disgrace. Consequences. The police. The cameras. In 24 hours. James went from a man of promise, to the son of a criminal. But here is the twist. He didn't run. He didn't hide. That night, in the middle of a room that felt like a cage, James did something he hadn't done in years. He prayed. Not with the polished words of a scholar. Not with confidence. But with the raw, bleeding honesty of a man who has nothing left to lose. God. I don't understand. I did everything right. Why am I the one bleeding? Sometimes. That is the most powerful prayer a human can utter. Not a request, but a cry. Because brokenness, total, absolute brokenness, is the only thing that invites true transformation. The atmosphere in the house changed. It wasn't about noise anymore. It was about truth. The father, seeing the wreckage he had caused his son, finally broke. For the first time, he wasn't the man of respect. He was just a man. He repented. He confessed. He began the long, agonizing walk of change. And here is the part that defies logic. James forgave him. He didn't forgive because it was easy. He didn't forgive because his father deserved it. He forgave because he realized that carrying the hatred was just another way of staying stuck in the past. Mercy is always louder than mistakes. And then, when the air was finally clear, something unexpected happened. Sarah returned. She didn't come back because the bank account was full or because the reputation was restored. She came back because she saw James stand in the fire and come out as gold. Their love was different now. It wasn't the sweet, easy love of the beginning. It was stronger. It had been tested by the worst life could throw at it. It was proven. If you have made it this far, if you are still listening to the sound of my voice, this story is speaking directly to you. So take a moment, subscribe to the channel, and join this community. Because stories like this are reminders. They remind us that the story isn't over just because the chapter is dark. Doors began to open for James. New opportunities. Better ones. But this time, James was a different man. He wasn't just successful, he was grounded. He wasn't just driven, he was wise. He finally understood the great secret of the universe. Delay is not always denial. Sometimes, it is protection. Sometimes, it is preparation. What if your delay is actually saving you from a version of success that would have destroyed you? What if your struggle is the only thing strong enough to shape you into the person you need to be? This story isn't just about James. It's about you. It's about the person you are becoming while you wait for the door to open. And maybe, just maybe, your breakthrough, the one you've been crying for, is closer than you think. When mercy speaks, the mistakes of the past lose their power. Your second act is just beginning.